Dualies are a weapon class that was introduced in Splatoon 2, and while they were super fun to use, they weren't exactly good in that game. The meta often worked against them, and majority of the Dualies struggled to thrive throughout the latter half of the game's life. But now, Splatoon 3 is here, and it makes me happy to say that, as of now, things are looking different for Dualies. Many of the things that made them bad in Splatoon 2 are gone now, the main one being main power-up. They may have just gone from being one of the worst weapon classes to one of the best. So with the new game being out and Dualies getting their potential chance to shine, I thought it would be a good idea to make a video going over the basics of the weapon class for newer players. I will also give a brief rundown of each individual Dualie, talking about their characteristics and what each one can offer. However, this will not be a full in-depth guide for any Dualie specifically. I do plan on making those in the future though, so be sure to stay tuned if that's something that you may be interested in. Really quickly before we get started, if you guys are new here, my name's Chase and I've been a competitive Splatoon player since 2018. I've also specialized in the Dualie weapon class ever since I began my competitive journey, and I've logged about 5,000 hours worth of playing them in Splatoon 2. So I definitely know a thing or two about this weapon class. If you guys want to see more Splatoon content like this, please consider subscribing. Our goal is 10,000 subs by the end of the year, and as you can see, we're pretty close. Alright, now let's get into the video. So in Splatoon 3, there are currently 5 different types of Dualies. I say currently because there is a chance that they could add a new one in the future, and if that does happen, I will of course release a part 2 to this video. But anyway, while each of these Dualies function and behave very differently, there are a few traits that all of them share, and that's what I want to talk about first. Obviously, the most unique trait that every Dualie has is the ability to perform a dodge roll. This can be done by shooting your weapon, moving in a direction, and pressing B simultaneously. Your character will stop shooting and will then roll in whichever direction you were holding. Once the animation is complete, they'll begin shooting again. Sounds complicated, but I promise it's super easy to get the hang of. Most Dualies can perform 2 dodge rolls, and once you've exhausted those, you'll be stuck in place for a little bit. I said most Dualies because there is one that can do more than 2 rolls, but we'll get to that later. One other thing you should keep in mind is that every time you perform a dodge roll, it will use up some of your ink tank. How much ink a dodge roll consumes depends on the type of Dualie. It's different for each one. Now, let's go over what exactly a dodge roll does for you. Why should you do it? Well, first off, it makes you hard to hit. If you're just scooting all over the place like this, then yeah, some people are probably gonna struggle to aim at you. But the benefits actually go way deeper than that. You see, after performing a dodge roll, if you let go of your left stick, your character will remain in this sort of crouched position, which I'm going to be referring to as turret mode from now on. In turret mode, you get a variety of perks, with one big caveat. Most notably, your weapon's accuracy will be improved dramatically. When you're in spread mode, aka just shooting and moving normally with a Dualie, you actually have 2 individual reticles, as you can see here. This makes sense since you're technically holding 2 guns. But in turret mode, these reticles will merge into one, making your shots way more accurate. Most Dualies also get a fire rate increase in turret mode, which means that the ink pellets will come out of your weapon at a faster rate. Now, certain Dualies get some other perks alongside the ones I just mentioned, but again, we'll talk about that in a bit. But remember how I said that turret mode gives a variety of benefits with one big caveat? Well, that caveat is pretty obvious. You're stuck in place. So you gotta be able to analyze different scenarios and determine which Dualie mode is better for a given situation. Do you remain in turret mode to confirm the kill? Or do you keep moving to keep your distance? I do plan on making a video going into detail about this soon, but by just experimenting and playing with Dualies, you'll catch on pretty quickly. Okay, so those are the basics. There's way more that I could talk about, but I want to keep this video relatively simple. Now, I wanted to give a quick rundown of each Dualie individually, going over their different characteristics and what each one is capable of. Because yes, while every Dualie can dodge roll and go into turret mode, they're all very unique in their own way. First up, we have the Splat Dualies. This is the most basic Dualie, it's pretty standard all around. It has the same range as a splatter shot, so not great, but not bad either. Its dodge rolls are a little slow, and it has a decent amount of downtime before you can start moving again. But once in turret mode, this thing is a force to be reckoned with. Its fire rate becomes astronomical, and its accuracy becomes perfect. No, I'm not exaggerating. This is the only dually that gets perfect accuracy in turret mode. The weapon also paints quite well, and the accuracy is pretty decent in spread mode also. But now, let's talk about the downsides. The most notable thing that I experience when playing this weapon is how much ink a dodge roll consumes. As of right now, a dodge roll takes up 7% of your ink tank. So if you just use your suction bomb and then try to fight immediately after, you may have a tough time. Splat dualies also have a relatively weak damage output, dealing only 30 damage per shot, making it a 4-shot kill. However, this isn't the worst thing in the world, given its amazing fire rate. So if you want a basic dually that does a decent job in pretty much every category, consider using these. Next up, we have the Dapple dualies. Now, this is an interesting one. It has one of the worst ranges in the entire game, but it has one of the fastest damage outputs. This weapon is a 3-shot kill, and its fire rate is insanely fast, especially in turret mode. It's the fastest killing weapon in the game, and it's also one of the best weapons for destroying objects, such as splash walls and the Rainmaker shield. It paints decently and it has pretty good accuracy. But of course, a weapon like this definitely has some negatives. Its range is its biggest downfall, since you need to get right up in someone's face in order to kill them. So what I find myself doing a lot with this weapon is going on flanks to sneak up on the enemies from behind. I recommend running a lot of swim speed with this weapon to be able to close distance faster, or let you escape faster if you find yourself in a tough situation. Running the Ninja Squid ability can also help with sneaking up on people. One other thing to note is that Dapple dualies are a lightweight weapon, so they have a few bonus speed perks that none of the other dualies possess. Next are the Dualie Squelchers, which have very long range. These are the strangest dualies to me, because it's so unlike the rest of them. Now, why am I saying that? Well, it's the only dually that doesn't get locked in place after performing 2 dodge rolls. Rather than being stuck in turret mode for a few frames, this thing kinda just keeps sliding in whichever direction you're holding. Do keep in mind though that this weapon does still have a turret mode if you choose to use it. So yes, as you're probably thinking right now, this is an amazing trait for the weapon, and it gives it so many mobility options. However, to balance this, the weapon does suffer in a few other areas. First off, it's the only dually that doesn't get an increased fire rate in turret mode. Its accuracy does improve, but to be honest, its accuracy is already pretty good in spread mode. Because of this, I would say that Dualie Squelchers have the least useful turret mode of all the dualies. That's fine though, because this thing is still extremely solid in its spread mode, which can't be said for the next 2 dualies that we're going to talk about. The last thing you need to watch out for when using this thing is its ink consumption. Like the Splat dualies, a single dodge roll consumes a hefty amount of ink, so you need to be cautious when using your sub-weapon and going into a fight. The Dualie Squelchers are one of the best weapons in Splatoon 2, and I have a feeling that they'll be solid in this game as well, so definitely give them a try. The 4th dually that we'll be discussing are the Glooga dualies. These are the slowest dualies, so they can feel a little clunky. But to make up for that, they have very good range, and they're capable of inflicting 52.5 damage per shot, making it a 2-shot kill. This means that Gloogas are the most powerful dually damage-wise. Now, I said the word capable because they don't always inflict that much damage per shot. You see, Gloogas are unique in that they're the only dually where actual properties of the weapon change when you're in turret mode. Its damage increases as well as its range. So it's a 3-shot kill in spread mode, but a 2-shot kill in turret mode. Plus, keep in mind that its fire rate, accuracy, and range increase in turret mode as well. So yeah, you're gonna be dodge rolling a lot with this thing. And trust me, you're gonna wanna do that because trying to kill with this thing in spread mode is one of the most painful things ever. It's so inaccurate, plus it's weaker. So there's really no reason to try and kill with the spread mode unless you absolutely have to. Just try and use this mode for painting the ground. Dodge roll if you're in a fight. As I said earlier, this is the slowest dually, so its strafe speed and dodge roll animations can feel a bit sluggish. Its accuracy and paint are questionable, no matter of which mode you're in. But even with all these issues, Gloogas can still be really solid if you put the time in. But they are one of the harder dualies to use, so don't get discouraged if you don't get the hang of them right away. Alright, 4 down, 1 to go. The final dually for us to discuss are the Tetra dualies. These are my favorite dualies in Splatoon, and they're the weapon that I've used the most by far. So why do I like them so much? Well, they're the only dualie that can roll more than 2 times. In fact, they can roll 4 times. It's also the only dualie that lets you shoot during a dodge roll, whereas all the other dualies have to wait for the animation to be completed. But now, before you jump in and say that these dualies are broken, you should know that these dualies have the most end lag of any dualie after completing your 4 dodge rolls. By far. I mean, just look at this, you're stuck in place for quite a few frames. Plus, the speed of the dodge roll animations are also pretty slow. So yes, while Tetras do have the insane ability of performing 4 dodge rolls at a time, it's balanced out in a pretty fair way. Plus, there are other negatives that I've yet to discuss, like its low damage output, or its very mediocre paint, or maybe the fact that it has the worst accuracy in the entire game while in spread mode. So it's hard to say where Tetras truly stand, because it has so much going for it, yet it's held back by a variety of drawbacks. But I will say this, right now, at the time of recording this video, Tetra Dualies are looking like they're gonna be one of the best weapons in Splatoon 3. If you want to use an ultra aggressive weapon that gives you an adrenaline rush, try these out. But do know that these are the hardest dualies to use, and probably one of the hardest weapons in the game. Well, there you go. There's a short explanation for every single dualie currently in Splatoon 3. I plan to release a series of videos in the future that go more in depth on each individual dualie, and in those, I'll talk about the subs and specials, as well as strategies for how to succeed with the weapon. But as for now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and for those of you who are new to Splatoon, I hope I was able to teach you something. If you did find it useful, please give it a like and consider subscribing, as I plan to make plenty more videos like this in the near future. Also, if you guys have any questions about what I talked about, or you just want to know more about dualies, or really just anything Splatoon related at all, feel free to comment it down below. I'm going to try my best to answer every question, so don't hesitate. Alright guys, that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.